Hello, students. It's me, your teacher, Mr. Harris. Thanks for watching this video. First thing I want you to do, on the piece of paper in front of you, is write down the date. Underneath that, write down Understanding Human Trafficking. It's this right here. You can pause the video to do that if you need to. Actually, yeah, pause the video. Alright, moving on. Alright, what is human trafficking? Human trafficking is the practice of forcing a person to labor or engage in services through manipulation. Pause the video now and write down this definition. Okay, now on the following slides, I want you to take about 30 seconds to read each slide. Write down information you believe is the most important, or information that sounds familiar to information that's in sold. Alright, how do traffickers recruit potential victims? These are the ways in which they are tricked into human trafficking, or wind up being trafficked. They get job offers, bogus marriage proposals, they're sold by their family members, they're kidnapped by close friends. So pause this video if you have to. Write down any of this. You don't have to write down it all, but write down, what sounds important to you. All right. This slide is about the age of the potential victims. All right. Adolescents are preferred above any other age group. And if seen on the street, children are perceived to be criminals or sexual deviants. So this has to do with this, the young people escaping. So if they're seen on the street, how do most people think of them? All right, in the sex trade, what type of businesses will buy the victims? Pause this video if you have to. One thing I think you should do is learn the word brothels. Brothels. Write that down and figure out the definition. This right here is just weird to me. Karaoke clubs? I don't understand that. Alright, moving on. How does a child eventually become willing to have relations with multiple men? They are beaten mercilessly, forced to drink alcohol, and drugged and given to the client while unaware. You should pause the video and summarize this, I would say. Now check this out. Basic life necessities like food, clothing, and shelter are charged to the child's account. Until that money is repaid, the child is obligated to continue in the slaveholder's service. How does the slaveholder gain complete control over a victim's life? Do you recognize this thing right here? That is a passport. It's what you use to get from country to country. Alright, so one thing they do is the traffickers just take the passports away from their victims. So it's a form of identification, things like that, so making it impossible for the victims to prove who they are. Oftentimes, the victim does not speak the local language. A lot of times, they're guarded and locked in a room, and they are taught to be mistrustful of officials and police. So, what does mistrustful mean? I would say this is very important right here. They're mistrustful of officials and police. So, do they trust the police? Here's just a map of Asia. In red is where Nepal is. That's where Lakshmi is from. In India is this whole thing right here. It's huge. So Lakshmi is in India right now. Does she know where in India she is? Pause the video if you have to at any time. Alright, here are places where human trafficking takes place. Africa, Bangladesh, China, Europe, India, North Korea, Pakistan, Sudan, and the United States. That's where we are. I would write down a few of the places where human trafficking takes place. Pause the video if you need to do that. This slide says, does this look like a foreign problem to you? These are various places in the United States where human trafficking has been discovered. There's Patricia McCormick. So I'm going to read this. To research for Sold, Patricia McCormick traveled and interviewed the people who had experienced this system of sexual slavery. To learn more about the system, she traveled to a shelter in Kathmandu, which is a place where former people who have been rescued are, and a village in Himalayas. McCormick based the village Lakshmi lives on and those she traveled to. So right here I would think, why did Patricia McCormick write this book? What was her purpose in writing this book? Just take a minute to think about it. Alright, now here are some comprehension questions that I'd like you to do. We got the definition of human trafficking. You probably should have done that already. 2 ways in which victims are recruited. Here, I've got a sentence starter for you guys. Use this. 2 ways victims are recruited is, alright, what is the targeted age of the victims? The targeted age of the victims is, okay, so pause the video on this slide to answer these questions. Number 4, when you're done with this slide, move on to this slide. Alright, how are trafficked people treated? Why don't they just leave? Is human trafficking a problem in the USA? Does that surprise you? And where did Patricia McCormick visit to research Sold? Pause this video to answer these questions. The end. You can choice read now if we still have a bunch of time left in class. Thanks for watching my video.